All right, everybody, I'm going to call our meeting to order here. February 7th, 2023, City Council regular meeting. It's 7 p.m., so can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Sylvia, roll call, please.
Mayor Mays? Excuse me.
We're in the wrong seats here.
Excuse me, Mayor Rosner. Mayor Rosner.
Here.
Council President Mays.
Here.
Councilor Browse.
Here.
Councilor Young. Here. Councilor Giles.
Here.
Councilor Stankey.
Here.
And Councilor Scott is absent.
Thank you, Sylvia. And next item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda. Is that what we need?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the amended agenda. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Council. And so tonight, number 5, the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda. One was removed. We have A, the approval of the January 17th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. And item B is Resolution 2023-012, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with OTAC and Harper Alf. I think that's how you say it. Peterson, have no idea. Read it if you want the details. For planning services. Do I have a motion?
I move consent.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Council. So next is citizen comments. Sylvia, do we have anybody tonight? Okay.
This is public hearing.
Oh, yep, that's for the public hearing. We'll get to that one later. All right, we have two items. Public comment is a chance for the public to come and bring up issues or challenges, or if you're so inclined, compliments of the city and council. So the way we do this is we have 4 minutes on the clock, and we'll start the clock when you talk. And we love hearing from you guys. So the first one we have is Steve Holthouse. Are you here, Steve? Thank you, Steve. So you want to go ahead and press that little button by the mic until it turns green so we can hear you. Awesome. Welcome, Steve. And go ahead.
I am here to talk about a pathway in Stella Olson Park that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of.
Just hand it to Sylvia. Yeah.
That time of year when it rains heavily, that pathway floods over, and it forces walkers to go up upon the green grass, the grassy knoll, to avoid the flooded pathway. My wife and I have walked it. My wife slipped once, fell down. She dragged me with her. I think the city could be in for a big liability suit or insurance claim or something if this continues. That picture is dated March 1917. So this has been going on for years. Right? I went to the Parks and Recreation Advisory meeting last night, and those gentlemen told me that their hands are tied, that it's up to you guys. You will not budget money to move the pathway. They have tried digging a little drainage ditch off to the creek to make, when water builds up, it runs off. But when the creek flows up, builds up, water flows over the pathway, and it forces people to go up over it. If you went there and looked at the grass, you would see the grass is slowly going away where people walk. It's very slick. That's what happened with us. I feel that, I think that it's a liability for the city. I think something ought to be done. And the Parks and Recreations people said they had asked you people to do something about it, and you refused to do it. Or I guess a previous council did. So I would strongly urge you to reconsider doing it, doing something besides putting sandwich boards at each end stating that the trail is impassable or something like that. Okay. It seems like it's really strange to me that this continues to go on and on and on. Can I ask questions?
So we typically don't take questions in public comment, but more than happy to either one of us or have you meet with staff afterwards or even later in the week. No problem.
I understand that the budget discussions are starting now and that the budget committee meets in May. How does the person get on the budget committee, or is it too late?
The budget committee's already set at this point. We do notices when the budget committee, when we're looking for members for the budget committee, so you can follow the website for that.
Public meetings for budget committee and citizen comments.
Yeah, and City Council President brings up a good point. Those are public meetings, and you can come give comment in those meetings as well.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
I hope that something can happen.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I appreciate you bringing that forward.
Can I just chime in with, now that he's left, is I know staff had been looking into this. I had dialogued with Steve a little bit during, over email, so if staff can continue just looking into any other options or if there aren't any.
Yeah, I could give an update from the staff, or from the staff people that were there last night. The answer they gave, which was that, you know, there's some restrictions by the clean water corridor there in terms of what we can do and can't do, and there's beavers that are building dams and stuff like that, and so they have done a canal that helps it drain faster. But they're, you know, and part of the concern was moving it up onto the hill would make it not as, you know, ADA compatible because of certain things. But frankly, there's a lot of problems because of the water that's in that park every couple of years, and even with the boardwalk area. So we can, you know, it's probably a part of a bigger thing, but it's obviously one of our showcase parks, and so we need to take care of it.
Thank you. Okay, so we can get outside of the meeting with staff and take a look at that. And again, thank you, Steve, for bringing that to our attention. And we have one more, Jim Claus. Good evening, Jim. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm good. How are you doing?
Night for me.
Good.
Robert James Claus, 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway. I have to be careful the way I say this because it's actually exhausting administrative remedies and reaching finality, which is trying to tell you we're preparing for litigation. Be glad to talk to your city attorney. We're going to try to talk to the staff. But we spend over $100,000, and we found out that our property is undevelopable. Now, a number of accusations were made and stated that we've very carefully documented were false, such as it was Cedar Brook Way was a county road, then Cedar Brook Way was an Oregon Department of Transportation road. And no one had read the easement, and they didn't know we owned the only 3 easements between Cedar Brook, where you end up with at the high school. All the others are gone, they outed everyone. The property now appears to be undevelopable. So we will have an attorney, certainly talk to you, Mr. Adams, and to the staff. But I've been there before, and I was really shocked because I've been in this kind of litigation a number of times. One of my cases went to the Supreme Court. Like it was on the court at the time when he lost the vote. I've seen that know it happens. This will be a long, long process. And Susie said, I'd rather have an abandoned eye than somebody that walked away from those people. We have the money to litigate. We've beaten all of the other people that you sug on us at one level or another. We've gotten over the hundreds of thousands you destroyed in our last subdivision. So we're bringing in a man that likes the staff and they like him. We'll have him talk and see what you want to do. But I, for the life of me, can't understand, Mr. Mays, how you say things at a meeting at the county and don't think they taped it. Because we can't develop that property. It's that simple. You won't tell us where Cedar Brook Way goes. You've tried to blame other people, and you've tried to say the cost. So the best thing to do is to prepare for litigation. And I don't know where it's going to go. It's really unhappy. I don't like it. I'm 82 years old, and I know just how Dolan felt when the same exaction was attempted on him, and while it ended up costing Taggart lots and lots of money, and I mean lots of money, it didn't do Dolan any good. He was dead. And I'm sure I won't survive this litigation if we have to go that far. So, Mr. Adams, please, I'm begging the best attorney I can find. He likes the staff. They like to work with him, and he'll be in touch. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have anyone else in the audience who'd like to give public comment tonight? Great, and I think he's checking if we have anybody online. No one online? Okay, great. All right, so again, thank you, Jim, and make sure I get it right, Steve, for coming out tonight and giving commentary. Next item on the agenda is presentations. So we have three presentations tonight. Get this, Sylvia. So the first one is James Davis in the audience tonight. No. Okay, well, that's fine. So some of you might not be aware of it. A lot of you are, that the City Council likes to recognize people in our community who hit significant milestones or achievements. And James Davis just achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, and which is a pretty amazing achievement for anyone who's been in Scouts. I was in Scout. I made it to Scout. I think that's the first one. So I wasn't quite as motivated as James is. But anyways, it's a great achievement. We have a certificate. James, if you're watching, here's your certificate. We'll make sure you get that in the mail. But congratulations on making Eagle Scout. Awesome. Should we do applause? I think we should do applause. Yeah. All right, so this one doesn't happen very often. This one's a lot of fun and a real achievement for this young lady and a real feather in the cap for the city of Sherwood. But Leah, are you here? Can you come up? I will, but she's going to talk to us first. So Leah Andrus, did I pronounce that right? Great. Were you elected? I think you were elected, right? Yeah, was elected the 2023 Oregon Kid Governor, which is a pretty amazing achievement. I had the pleasure of getting to meet you at the grade school. What was that, a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago? And we got to chat for a little bit. And I'm so happy that you and your family could come here tonight and share this with you. We have a great plaque that I'll give to you in just a minute after you talk to us a little bit. But congratulations, it's quite an achievement. Can you tell us a little bit about the process and what was your platform? What were you campaigning on, is trying to convince people to elect you as kid governor? Move the mic a little closer.
Okay. My campaign is anti-bullying. My 3-point plan is Toodles, Kindness Helper, and a daily act of kind service. Toodle is a note that students write to each other to help encourage each other. A kindness helper can be any student which is picked, and they look for someone who is sad and lonely and needs a friend, and can report nice things that other students have done. A daily act of kind service is I'm going to encourage people to do one kind act of service today. Through my 3-point plan, I hope to decrease bullying in our schools and in our communities.
That is
Awesome.
That is incredible. Could you answer a few questions for us?
Sure.
Sure. Does anybody have any questions?
How does this work? How did you rally your votes from across the state, and you know, what is the process from who votes you to be kid governor?
The process so we have to make a video, and then we have to give it to our schools, and then our school, the 5th grade students in our schools vote. And then after that, they send it to the state, and then they pick the top 7. And then if the class registers, then the class who registered gets to vote. And they get to vote for whoever they want to. So.
Awesome.
I actually have a question for mom and dad. Are you mom and dad? Dad, okay. So and for you, Leah, would you be willing to come talk to our Rotary Club about your experience?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. If you can leave your information with Sylvia, I'll be in contact. Congratulations.
So I have a question as well. Do you think that because of this experience, do you think that you might want to, when you grow up a little bit more, go into politics as an adult? Or are you about done with it?
Maybe.
I don't know. She looks like a pretty strong young lady. I need to
That's
see
a
more
very
of
good
her.
answer.
I know, maybe. That's a very
People
political
guessing.
answer. That's great. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
Did you have any questions, Kim?
Nope.
Dan? Well, it truly is amazing. So we have a plaque or framed certificate. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, we'll get it. We want to. Dad might want a picture too. Let's see. Let's stand over here.
Well done. That is so cool.
Oh.
So kind of like. That's super, super sweet.
Isn't it? It's very cool.
Yeah, she'd be a great candidate for this.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Leah, for coming out tonight, and thanks, Dad, for coming down as well. So we have one more item on the for presentations tonight. I don't know if it'll be as exciting as the last one, but I'm just kidding. But no, we have our Sheriff Pat Garrett here tonight to give us an update. I'm just teasing, you know that. Thanks for coming out.
Mayor Rosner, councilors. I actually think I should yield all of our time back to Leah. Thank you for allowing myself, I'm Sheriff Pat Garrett. I'm joined tonight by Under Sheriff John Cook to provide a Sheriff's Office update. We are going to focus on countywide services like running the county's jail working with our partners, just as you do, is critical to maintaining a safe community. We value our partnership with Chief Hanlon and his wonderful team. Our deputies and your officers work together literally every day or night. And really proud to be a partner with the Sherwood Police Department, and you have a wonderful team, as you know, that serves your city. And through the partnerships we're able to enjoy together, we are able to say that according to the National Incident-Based Reporting System, the FBI's crime stats that they track, that Washington County has the lowest combined crime rate of the 5 most populated counties in Oregon. That continues to be a strategic goal for us and something we follow closely, and we're proud to say we're able to continue to say that. Our mission is drawn from state statute. It's not just, though, getting the job done, but it's how you do it, right? So we attached our organizational values to the mission. We believe they strongly align with serving community and building a team, and our strategic goals are focused on professionalism, building trust, and being fiscally accountable. There are literally hundreds of statutory tasks assigned to a sheriff's office. This list here is just some of the responsibilities assigned to a sheriff's office by statute. The top couple in black are just 2 examples of tasks that are assigned to us that are in common, whether you're a police officer, state trooper, or sheriff's deputy. The list items in blue are unique to a sheriff's office. We are the only organization that executes those tasks. But just as your city officers provide services that are tied uniquely to your city code, we have unique missions as well. Just a couple of comments about some of these. Execute all warrants. That just means we maintain all circuit court arrest warrants, and we at any one time we maintain between 12 and 13,000 active arrest warrants. We purge some of those every year that are really old and lower level, in partnership with our district attorney's office. And then, of course, your officers, they serve arrest warrants, and then they bring folks to our jail to be booked, and that's another way that we clear warrants. The 4th bullet up from the bottom, execute civil process and court orders. What is that? This is what that means. We have about 7 civil deputies who have the unique responsibility in the county to serve orders issued by the court. These are almost always non-criminal orders, but they are civil court orders. And just an example about how we partner with police departments in this function. So we serve all restraining orders and protective orders. But if any police officer, like a Sherwood officer, develops probable cause that one of those orders has been violated, then they're, of course, going to make that arrest. Any police officer will make an arrest for a violation of a protection or restraining order. Managing our jail, in addition to the couple of reasons that are listed on this slide for how you could end up in custody, if you are on supervision, and let's say you're getting off track, you come up with maybe a urinalysis that shows someone is using again when they're in drug treatment, or they refuse to or not meet with their parole probation officer. Sometimes they can be sanctioned to jail for a few days or a few weeks just to get their attention and get them back on track for a successful transition back to the community. And then in very rare cases, you can end up in jail custody subject to a material witness warrant or contempt of court, but that's very, very rare. We are, as the mayor knows, we were honored to host the mayor and other mayors around Washington County at our jail a few weeks back. We are in the midst of a staffing crisis. We have about 18 jail deputy vacancies. And that prevents us from running a completely fully operational jail. Made the decision to close the housing unit temporarily so we could ensure that we are still running a safe jail because of the reduced staff. And we're working as hard as we can to eliminate that gap in staffing so we can open our jail back up again. So our current capacity is 508 instead of 572 beds, and they're broken down by categories there on this slide. In 2021, we booked 106 individuals in custody arrested by the Sherwood Police Department, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, and then just this past year, that was 180. It's also important to know that in April, we discontinued temporary booking restrictions because of COVID and to return to booking all probable cause and arrest warrants so that local police officers can resolve a public safety emergency in the moment by having the ability to take that person to jail if they feel that's appropriate. So impacts from COVID-19, we're just going to go back a couple of years. We were mandatory masking all throughout the jail for about a little over 2 years. If you worked in the jail, you were masked up when you worked. Our jail staff did a fantastic job to limit the spread of COVID in that congregate setting. COVID still has a presence in congregate settings where you're living close together 24/7. We continue to mask up in the housing unit where newly lodged adults are housed just to get through the first 5 or 6 days, and in our medical observation unit. During COVID, we continue to facilitate attorney visits, right? Super important to do that both in person and for brief conversations by phone into the housing unit. And then we are seeing, just as we are seeing in our community, we are also seeing folks that arrive in jail are a higher prevalence of substance use disorder and behavioral health. And just this last summer, our jail staff revived 2 individuals who newly arrived in jail who became unconscious, and we revived them with Narcan, that life-saving nose spray if someone is experiencing an opioid overdose. So we're just really focused on that as well, kind of part of our new reality. And then the long-term impacts of the last 2 years. So we do have some more challenging management kind of dynamics of people who are in custody. One example, compared to 2019 to today, we have over double the number of Measure 11 offenders in custody. Those are people who are charged with the most violent felonies, and they are more challenging to manage. We continue to focus, on a positive note, on programs and services that have proven, because we compare individuals to themselves over time, proven to reduce recidivism if they complete recommended programs, both in our jail that address cognitive, how they make decisions, literally job training, computer classes, English as a second language, both NA, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, substance use disorder treatment. They have a lower rate of reoffending if they complete those programs. And then we're also benefited by our community corrections department, who have their own programs as well. So that continues to work, and we prioritize that as part of our jail services. And I will toss this over to Under Sheriff Cook for some specialized team updates.
Thank you, Sheriff. In Washington County, we enjoy great partnerships with the cities and the county. And in law enforcement, we see those same partnerships. We're able to pool our resources on a lot of large scale incidents to provide a better service to all of our communities. One of the teams that we'll talk about is our crash reconstruction team. They're able to pool resources together to obtain grants for high dollar equipment like 3D imaging scanners that can not only scan and image crashes, but they can also go into major crime scenes. And just by us all kind of working together on a lot of those special teams, we can see a better service to the community. The Sheriff's Office manages a lot of these teams in order to provide that countywide response through all of the unincorporated and municipal areas. Next slide, please. Thanks. The first couple teams I'll talk about is our tactical negotiations team and our crisis negotiations unit. This is your traditional SWAT team and hostage negotiations team. Most people get their information from TVs and movies. Our teams aren't like that. We've got some very highly trained professionals that serve all of our communities throughout these teams. We really look at them as an escalation of safety. Because of their training and the partnerships, they're able to de-escalate really tense situations. In Washington County in 2021, the tactical negotiations team responded to over 128 calls for service. And those are high-risk calls with people in crisis with weapons, really causing a threat to our community. We don't hear about those on the news because they're able to safely and professionally de-escalate those and bring those to a peaceful resolution. With those 128 calls for service in 2021, there was only one that resulted in a use of force with an injury. So really low numbers, and it just kind of leads to the professionalism of those teams. Next slide, please. The next team we're going to talk about is our criminal apprehension team. And this team works with the U.S. Marshal Service, and they have a very similar Mission, the U.S. Marshals search out wanted fugitives, and they look at federal sex offenders across the United States. Our CAT team here locally does the same thing. They search out and apprehend wanted fugitives in Washington County, and then they also attempt to contact all 2,000 registered sex offenders in Washington County, no matter where they live. During COVID, they were not able to get out to all of those folks, but they did focus on the highest risk offenders to make sure they were in compliance with any of their court regulations. They're back on track to try to touch base with every one of those folks throughout all of our communities. In 2021, they arrested over 300 folks and made 1,100 home visits to different people. Next slide, please. Next, we'll talk about our mental health response team. This team's been in existence for over 10 years. Very, very successful. It started as a partnership with the Sheriff's Office, Washington County Behavioral Health, and LifeWorks Northwest. It was so successful, we spread it through all of our municipal partners as well. Beaverton, Hillsborough, South County has an outstanding team with Tiger, Tualatin, and Sherwood. TriMed also has a team. This team responds to over 2,400 calls for service every year. And again, they're dealing with folks that are in crisis at that moment. And their use of force numbers are less than 1% of the time that they have to use force. And that's really due to the advanced training that these folks get, and they're paired up with their clinicians, and so they're able to de-escalate those situations. And they'll respond to all of our communities when they're needed. Next slide, please. This last slide just kind of highlights some of our partnerships. Again, we have great partnerships with Sherwood Police Department. We'll see they come out and cover us in the unincorporated areas. We come and help them inside the city. In 2021, the hostage negotiators, the CNU Crisis Negotiations Unit, were able to respond to the city and help a gentleman that was in crisis that had climbed up to a telephone pole, and they were able to get that suspect down safely and get them the help that they needed. In 2022, there was a missing 12-year-old that our deputies worked in partnership with city police officers to help find that child and bring them to safety. And again, it shows the partnerships that we enjoy here in Washington County. Next slide. And with that, we'll open it up for any questions.
Well, thank you very much for coming out. Just real quickly, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the partnership the County Sheriff's Department has with our police department. I think I'm okay in saying that we value that, and if we think it's a strong relationship. And thank you for the tour of the jail. Your staff there was amazing. Had a great time, even in the elevator. Still had a great time. So, but I want to open this up to council if they have some questions here.
Yeah, so I have one comment and then a question. So first of all, the mental health team is phenomenal. I did a ride along with the fire department, and we saw one of those teams in action that was helping someone else out, and just in reality, there was more people there than needed to be there because the fire department was there as well. And so we were just kind of standing off the back and watching them in action to kind of de-escalate the situation. And the fireman said, I'd say probably 90% of our calls could use a mental health professional on it, because it was one of those things where it was like seeing just compassion in action and professionals doing and so anyway, I highly encourage that. The second, my actual question, by the way, on that comment, I wish I remember the woman's name who was the professional. I give her a shout out, but I'm getting old. I'm not going to remember that long. But so my question was, you said you were having a staffing issue on the jail. Is that a staffing issue due to not having finding employees, or is it a funding issue that is going on?
It's an acquisition issue. So we've tracked the number of applicants that are just simply applying for work in our jail facility. It's gone off a cliff these past couple of years. We're not seeing an exodus. We're seeing maybe a slight upward trend in retirements for those who are eligible, but it's really not significant. What is significant is the reduced number of people who are applying, both on the enforcement side for police officer jobs. It's more significant when it comes to working in a jail. I've heard nurses say it's tougher now to be a nurse than it has been before, and there's similar challenges in a correctional setting.
Well, and frankly, so I'm in the nurse staffing industry actually as well, so I know that. But in fact, at a Staffing Industry of America conference this last year, they brought up that there are the same number of percentages of people are graduating from high school, but there's 200,000 less of them, mainly because of family sizes over the last 20 years. And so we don't have some of those bodies that that we used to have to fill some of these jobs, and part of it is just we're having smaller families. And so I don't know if there's a long-term fix. I certainly don't think there's a sheriff fix on that you can make us have bigger families, but it's not just you, it's that. The fire department said that they had 70 openings on the West Coast when they previously usually have 3 or 4, and so it's one of those things where this is a bigger problem, but we may have to figure out how to, stretch our people in a way that doesn't break them. So, anyway.
Less people in jail would help.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I'm all for that.
I just want to know how you orchestrated getting all the mayors in the elevator and it's stopping for.
Thought it was
That was pretty crafty.
That is a very good public service. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, councilors. The mayor was very gracious. They all were. And when they realized that the undersheriff and I took the stairs, we were like the only two that didn't get on that elevator.
There was a discussion about that in the elevator. Any other questions?
No, you
thank
just
you.
appreciate all the hard work that your professional colleagues and you do for us, for the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. So now we are on to our public hearing for tonight. We have an ordinance for a planned unit development. Sylvia, you want to?
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening to hear testimony on ordinance 2023-001, approving a 31-lot planned unit development, PUD, and subdivision to be known as the Mosier Pass PUD. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a staff report. Questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. We will receive any written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited as follows. The applicant will receive 30 minutes, split between presentation and rebuttal. Persons in favor of the application, 4 minutes each. Persons opposed to the application, 4 minutes each. Persons neutral with regard to the application, 4 minutes each. Rebuttal from the applicant with the remainder of the 30 minutes. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. Final comments by staff. Questions of staff, if any, by the council, followed by council discussion. This is the first hearing before the City Council on this application. Generally, the council will hold 2 hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on this application is currently scheduled for February the 21st. However, in accordance with the city charter, council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote of all sitting council members. If you wish to speak, please fill a request to speak form and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded. In reaching a decision on the application, the council must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulation and any other applicable law. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. The testimony and evidence must address those criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the council, the applicant, or the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I would like to ask the members of the council to disclose any ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing.
Kim, any?
Do we need to state it? On planning commission, we had to state it. We had to say, I do not have a conflict of interest, and I will fully participate in the hearing tonight.
I also don't have a conflict of interest, and I will fully participate.
I do not have a conflict of interest and will fully participate. I have talked with staff, about the project, but that's it.
No conflict of interest, and I will fully participate.
I have no conflict of interest, and I intend to fully participate.
And the same will apply for me, no conflict of interest, and I intend to fully participate.
Thank you, Council. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any of the council members' ability to participate? Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. All right, and Sylvia, feel free if, since this is my first time as mayor running a public hearing like this, feel free to let me know if I skip a step or get something out of order, so. All right, Eric, I think you're up for staff presentation.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Rosner and City Council. Eric Rutledge, Community Development Director at the city. Normally, we'd probably take this through with one of our planners, but I had started the project, and so I'll be wrapping it up. Happy to be giving the presentation tonight. The proposal is for a 32-lot subdivision and PUD for single-family residential homes. The zoning on the property is very low-density residential within the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and this is a Type 5 land use action with the City Council as the decision authority. In terms of process, this is a little bit unique for our process, but as I mentioned, City Council is the decision maker. We held a Planning Commission hearing in January, and they've made a recommendation to City Council. You have that in your packet, and I'll provide a summary of that. Again, you're the final decision maker. After you make the decision, the final development plan will go back to Planning Commission. They're basically checking the boxes. If the application is approved, they'll be checking the conditions of approval and making sure that all of the conditions are satisfied. And after that happens, the applicant can go to Washington County and record the plat. And we do have since this is an ordinance, we do have 2 hearings scheduled this evening, February 7th, and then the second one is scheduled for February 21st, 2 weeks from today. We have routed the application to affected agencies, and those comments are included in the Planning Commission recommendation packet. We've provided notice in accordance with City Code that includes mailed notice to property owners within 1,000 feet of the site. We did receive one piece of verbal testimony at the Planning Commission hearing, and I'll provide a summary of that. We haven't received any written testimony on the application. Here's the applicable code. The Planning Commission Planning Commission recommendation goes into all of these code criteria in detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll highlight a few that are probably most relevant to the decision making. In terms of details of the site, site's located on the east side of Murdoch Road. Get my pointer here. East side of Murdoch Road and just north of the Upper Roy intersection, about a 13-acre site. The existing conditions, there is an existing single-family home and a few outbuildings on the property, a driveway serving the site from Murdoch Road. The proposal is to remove all of the existing structures and redevelop the entire site. Limited vegetation on the site. Historically, this back portion of the site was forested, similar to what you'd see just off-site here. The trees were removed in the mid-2000s by the previous property owner. So some regrowth of the vegetation here, but nothing significant in terms of mature or native trees. In terms of the surrounding land uses, of course, Murdoch Road to the west, single-family residential to the west on about 5,000 square foot lots roughly. To the north, a little bit larger single-family single-family lots, about 1 acre lots is what these would be. And then these areas down here are the previous approvals. They're not really showing up on the aerials at this point because they're so new. So just go over those. The previous subdivision and PUD that this council saw was the Denali Summit PUD for 41 lots. Prior to that, the Denali Meadows PUD and subdivision for 13 lots, Denali Lane for 7 lots, and then we also have what we call the Chin Partition, which is under grading right now for 3 lots. This area here that I have outlined in this gray, this is the extent of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan area. And so you can see if once this site that's under consideration this evening is developed, that would represent full build out of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan area. Really not a lot of some sort of larger lots left here, but very minimal opportunity for future subdivision. So this would represent completion of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan area. In terms of the zoning and density, the underlying zone is VLDR, very low density residential. That zone allows 0.7 to 1 unit per acre. The code does allow for a PUD of the very low density residential zone. If a PUD is requested and approved, the density allowed is between 1.4 and 2 units per acre. And then the highest that you can achieve is by doing a very low density residential PUD that also conforms to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. And if that is requested and approved, then it allows up to 4 units per acre. And this last one here is the request in front of you this evening. The proposal, again, is for a single-family residential development at a density of approximately 3 units per acre with a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. So again, up into this last category, up to 40 units per acre. In terms of the development standards, the applicant is proposing to comply with all of the what we call base zone development code standards. We did do a code update recently that removed the opportunity to grant exceptions to setbacks and to lot sizes within PUDs. So some of this was sort of not available based on a recent code update. But other ones would still be available that weren't requested. So all of the lots would comply with the underlying zone with the exception of the lot size at 10,000 square feet. Normally it would be 1 acre if it was the VLDR zone. And then just to highlight some of the criteria that are, I think, most relevant. The planned unit development criteria, I won't go over all of it in detail, but this is a little bit different and above and beyond what we'd see in a normal subdivision. So a normal subdivision requires 5% open space. If you're doing a PUD, it requires 15% open space. I think sort of this standard here gets sort of to the crux of what PUDs are, which is that the applicant can apply for exceptions to the underlying zone, which in this case would be density. And then the decision maker determines if the exceptions to that underlying zone are warranted by the unique design and amenities that are incorporated into the development plan. Another one is that the PUD would have a beneficial effect on the area which could not be achieved using the underlying zoning district. So again, increased density, and that in turn should provide a beneficial effect on the area which couldn't be achieved at the 1 unit per acre. And then specific to this proposal, it's in the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan area, and so there's approval criteria that are very specifically related to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. And for example, the parks and pathways that are proposed within the development are located in the general vicinity of Alternative BC of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and I'll show you that on the next slide here. So there's approval criteria that is specific to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. Here is the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan for this site, which is outlined in red. Just to highlight a few of the key components, we have a road coming down and connecting to Murdoch Road at this Upper Roy intersection, a pedestrian connection along Murdoch Road, along the frontage of the site. It did call for another local street connection to Murdoch Road. city code actually prefers less intersections with arterial roads, and so what's proposed here is going to be a cul-de-sac. I'll show the plat in just a second. And then this historic forest that was removed was at 4 acres in the BC alternative of the master plan, and then trails throughout the open space or throughout the subdivision. Here's the preliminary plat. Private lots are shown in yellow. Again, this is a 32 lot proposal. Open space shown in green. The blue tract here is a stormwater tract. All of our arterials require what we call a visual corridor, so additional buffering or planting along the roadway. A pedestrian connection from the open space into to Murdoch Road through the public street. And kind of jumping the gun here a little bit with the Planning Commission recommendation, but I'll get to that. I just highlighted this because this is what the Planning Commission ultimately recommended approval of is as shown with the conversion of this Lot 21 to open space. That's why it's highlighted there in red. Another small open space tract here identified as a tract B. And so as you can see, this would connect to the previous PUDs and subdivisions that were approved as part of the adjacent lots to the south. And I'll just, while I have this slide up, the one public piece of testimony that we received was a property owner to the north here, and the question and comment was around buffering between this open space tract and the residents here. Planning Commission ultimately didn't recommend any additional conditions related to that. The code really doesn't require, since these are residential to residential uses, the code doesn't require any specific buffering or fencing or anything like that. And so the way it concluded was having the applicant and the property owner to the north come up with a voluntary agreement for some type of fencing or screening between the two properties. This is the open space plan. Again, you can see the open space here along the north and east corners of the property with a connection to Murdoch Road. I'll point out that all of these walkways are designed at a 15-foot wide corridor, 5-foot pavement with 5 feet of landscaping on each side, so that would match what was provided in the adjacent approvals. I think the key part of the open space plan is that this area that's hatched here in green is proposed to be reforested. So putting back a portion of the historic forest that was there. Again, Lot 21 highlighted that Planning Commission called out for conversion. And then you can see the trail that is proposed here. This would be a wood chip trail. These entrances here would be asphalt or a hard surface, but once you get into this open space area here, it would be a nature, well, they're calling it a nature trail, which would be wood chips. Other open space amenities, a gazebo is proposed in this area. You can see it here. Benches are proposed along the open space trail. Interpretive signage is proposed within the open space that would be consistent with what was approved as part of the Denali PUD to the south. And then, as I mentioned, the forest restoration throughout this area. And just to give you a visual of what this looks like coming all together throughout what we're calling the Denali PUDs and subdivisions. So again, this property's up here to the north. A few different connections from Murdoch Road. This one's already in and constructed with some landscaping. A second pedestrian trail or pathway coming from Murdoch Road. And then, of course, the main key open spaces here along the back. So a fairly consistent trail and open space system along the back of all of the developments. With some pedestrian connectivity through the open spaces and private street tracks. And of course, there'd be sidewalks on each side of the public road going throughout the development. As part of the PUD, the applicant's required to provide an architectural pattern book, and this is just a few different examples of the types of homes that are proposed. Won't get into detail, but there's lots of visuals in the application application of the different types of homes that are proposed. In terms of parking, the zone requires one parking stall per single-family detached home. So this would be in the driveway of each home. What we're seeing, these homes being constructed with 2 to 3 car garages as well. So should be plenty of off-street parking within the lots. In terms of transportation improvements, the developer is conditioned to provide full frontage improvements along Murdoch Road. That would include the visual corridor and then sidewalk improvements with this connection into the development. The applicant's also conditioned to provide a flashing beacon at this intersection of Murdoch or Upper Roy and Murdoch. Staff is picking up on the fact that there's Murdoch Park just across the street here, and so we anticipate there'd be probably a lot of crossing in this location. So applicant has been conditioned to provide a flashing beacon for pedestrians at that location. Again, one piece of neutral testimony about the buffering between the open space and the properties to the north. This is an additional condition of approval that staff is picking up on. It's related to finalizing this PUD. We don't have this condition in the Planning Commission recommendation, but staff is recommending at this point, and it just clarifies that the PUD ordinance becomes effective at the time of final development plan, as opposed to when City Council actually, assuming we get to approval. We don't want to. The PUDs are an overlay zone. We're actually amending the zoning, the zoning map, and so we don't want to do that too early. If conditions change, the applicant doesn't move forward. So, and this is actually a code requirement that we're picking up on as well, that the PUD becomes effective at final development plan approval. Once we know they're ready to move forward, Planning Commission approves it, then we'll update the zoning map and actually make it official. So that additional condition. And then getting into the Planning Commission recommendation, highlighting really the deficiency here that Planning Commission picked up on. They really didn't have other deficiencies, so they were okay with everything else, with the exception of what I'm highlighting here. And that is that the Commission found that the amount of open space provided and the location and the design of the open space did not meet the approval criteria. The Commission did acknowledge the difficulties of developing the site based on topography and bedrock conditions. The main issue that they were picking up on was that there was 4.5 acres of forested open space identified on the property in the master plan, and approximately 2.06 acres were proposed. We did have some discussion about the fact that the trees have been removed, and so the applicant's actually replanting. That's a little bit more difficult than just preserving. And so some credit there for, actually taking the action of replanting as opposed to just preserving. But regardless, they felt that the amount of open space and the location was not sufficient in relation to the approval criteria. The other specific concern that they had was that the open space would not be accessible to all the members of the community based on the proposed trail surface, which was wood chips, and the grade of the trail within Track C. And so the trail, for the most part, is in the sloped area of the open space. And so, not ADA compliant, and, really not all that visible and all that accessible to the general public. And so those were the two main concerns: quantity of open space, and then the design and accessibility of the open space. And they identified 3 different approval criteria that weren't satisfied based on those deficiencies. And so the Planning Commission recommendation, the way they were able to get to yes was to convert this lot 21 to open space. And, the idea was that it would provide more of a flat, usable area for open space. These building pads are going to be relatively flat. This would be more visual as you're sort of driving along the road here. And then, of course, just more accessible based on the grades. And so they recommended approval to you with this additional condition of converting lot 21 to usable open space. And the city council alternatives for you this evening, you can approve the application based on the findings and conditions in the Planning Commission recommendation. You can approve the application with modified findings and conditions, or you can deny the application with modified findings. And again, we have the second hearing scheduled for February 21st, so staff would be looking for your thoughts on the proposal relative to the approval criteria, get that feedback from you. If any changes are needed, make those changes and bring them back to you on the 21st for that action. And we do have time within the 120-day deadline. If it's needed, we can go into the first meeting in March. I think everyone would prefer to get this wrapped up on the 21st, but we do have one additional meeting if that's needed in March. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Eric. We'll go ahead and move on to the applicant presentation. All right, thank you for coming out tonight. Sylvia, you want to start the timer? Great.
Thanks for having us. I'm Jennifer Arnold. I'm with Amirio Design, and I represent the applicant for the project.
Kenzie Roth, applicant, JT Roth Construction. Address is 12600 Southwest 72nd Avenue, Portland, Oregon. Just a little side note, also a resident of Sherwood.
Great, welcome.
And we also have the project engineer from Amirio Design out of the Eugene, Oregon office as well. So we listened and participated in the Planning Commission process, and we agreed with staff findings and recommendations at that level. And coming to this point, we still recommend the staff recommendation and their conditions of approval. However, we have kind of proposed a new option to address some of the Planning Commission concerns regarding the open space. So we understand that the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan had a significant amount of tree canopy and open space preserved, and it did appear that it was preserved specifically for that grouping of trees. And with those gone, we've worked the site to the best ability to meet the needs of the code, the stakeholders, the property owner, and we have still preserved a significant amount of open space, a little over 2 acres. And we're proposing to plant 325 trees to fix that tree removal. It will take some time for those trees to grow, but it is an investment in the project, in the site, and in the community. I believe a couple exhibits were sent to you prior to tonight. It's like, okay. And so the first one is specifically speaking to the Planning Commission's goals with having a little bit more open space. It seemed that 10,000 square feet of extra open space satisfied some of their concern, so they proposed to drop lot 21. We're proposing to keep lot 21. In order for the subdivision to work, we need all the lots to be platted. So we've adjusted the lots along that row to expand the open space wedge that holds that the access to the upper level in between lots 21 and 20. We've widened the throat at the right-of-way, and that's now about 30 feet. We have an ADA trail all the way up to the gazebo, so it's more accessible for everybody. We show a lot of switchbacks in order to accommodate that. And then up at the top, we provided some square footage. It is wider and much longer than the original plan that the Planning Commission saw at the top of the park. And then the trail was also adjusted to better follow the contours. They were worried about the natural path being too steep in some places, given the contour lines on the original drawing. So they wanted to make sure that it was accessible for as many people as it can be, and we tried to achieve that goal. And the second page of that exhibit just shows you the topography difference and what we're working with in that area, and how we have to have a few walls and some creative sloping to make it all work. But the buffer area between the lots and the trail within our site has gotten a little bit bigger to provide a little bit extra separation and to make it a little more inviting. And then we are not proposing any variances to lot size or standards, as staff noted. We're proposing to extend the existing street system that was part of previous approvals into this site. So there are some transportation standard modification requests included with our application. Anything from applicant?
She did a good job, but just to kind of add to it, you know, this is the fourth one I think that we've brought before you. I didn't sit through any of them. My dad usually did them. So this is the fourth and final one. You know, we're kind of here wrapping up this southeast Sherwood area. We feel like we brought a pretty clean site, pretty clean project. We aren't asking for any changes. We're above and beyond the open space requirement. As Jennifer noted, we're reforesting the area. We actually have been contracted with a company they've actually gone out there and pulled some saplings they're being held to replant. So they're actually going to replant some saplings that were already there on the site. We're bringing a natural trail, kind of a different experience for the public, going from one site to the next. Natural wood chip trail. You might ask why is it wood chip? Well, as these trees mature, they're just gonna drop needles, and it's just gonna be hard to maintain an asphalt path. So that's kind of why we wanted to go with the wood chip path. And as she noted, it's ADA compliant down in the gazebo, so more people can use it. I've been working closely with the neighbor to the north to make sure all of their challenges or questions are satisfied. And I feel like him and I have a great agreement that we'll just work offline. If there's any issues, I'll just work with him to satisfy those. As she noted, we've kind of increased the square footage on that pie leading into the open space back there. I think we're kind of achieving. Hopefully it's a win-win for everyone. Where I was speaking with a neighbor and they weren't very excited about having a local area for everyone to congregate because it's kind of in his backyard. So I was like, okay, we'll pull the gazebo up closer to the street. We'll get it away from your property. We'll allow ADA compliance so more people can use it. So he seemed pretty happy about that. I think we got a pretty good project here, and I'm here to answer any questions you guys have.
The rest of our time for rebuttal, but we are here for questions.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. So do we have any, so we'll move on to testimony. Do we have any testimony in advocates for this project? Do you want to do questions at this point? You can get them after the rebuttal. Yeah. And do we have any testimony from opponents? I think we had one from earlier that I held out. Yeah. David Sherman? Sure. Yes. Great. Thanks, David.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Very quickly.
Real quick, just
David Shireman, 22151 Southwest Wall Street.
As Sylvia pointed out, you get 4 minutes. So.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
I am a member of the Park and Recreation Board here in Sherwood, but I am not representing their opinion at this point. I just want to be very clear on that. But when I heard about this, I was concerned because it did not come through Park and Rec. I know Planning Commission did a wonderful job. They do a ton of work and stuff. But being an advocate for the parks, I just wanted to point out to you that we did not have input on it. And I would appreciate the opportunity to get that in any time in any developments, because I'm on the Park and Rec Board because I'm an advocate for parks. Within Sherwood, we have basically 3 kinds of parks. Our 2 regional parks that are about 22 acres apiece, neighborhood parks at 3 to 6.2 acres, and then some pocket parks. And historically, I've been on the board now, it's my second time on it, and we've discouraged the pocket parks because they're so small, they're very limited to who they can serve. Basically, a tot lot is what you can get on there, and by a tot lot would be a small playground. And so that really cuts out, I believe it cuts out a portion of our citizens, such as teenagers, because a small lot park, you can't even throw a baseball or a football across it. And so it's very limited. So we discourage development of more of those. Additionally, this one I believe would be part of an HOA. And historically what happens after the HOAs change over, the cities and park and recreation districts inherit them. And if you don't have any input up front, you don't get to really choose, i.e. we would have looked at the surfaces and the steepness and things like that. Those are things we would consider because that's kind of the things we look at. This one didn't come through us. I totally support what the rest of the folks have said about it as far as, we do need some open space area, but the Park and Rec Board, I'm sure would be more than happy to look at it. I know as a member of it, I would be, and to help advise you to make a good decision, and that's just all I really have to say about that. So, I guess one, since I do have a minute left. Murdoch Park is across there, but as you know, Murdoch I mean, people are going 35, 40 miles an hour. So having a park on that side of the road for people to use, especially with smaller children, I think that definitely has some serious value and should be considered in that neighborhood area so that people don't have to cross a busy intersection to get to it. I do love the fact that they do have trails incorporated in there, but the surface would be the first thing that jumps out in my mind. And not having been on the backside of that property, I don't know how steep it is and stuff, but I think you guys have kind of looked at that, and it sounded like there was some concerns about the grade, because we do want our parks to be accessible to everyone. And if you've got a steep hill, it's a problem like you heard earlier with the flooding of a park. We want to try and not have those problems and have to deal with them 20, 30 years down the road. So thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Sylvie, did we get some more? Chris? Yeah, you can be neutral. So that's okay. And Chris, just your name and address.
Chris Corrado, 14331 Southwest Fair Oaks Drive, Sherwood, Oregon. Resident here for 30 or 40 years, roughly, I guess. But we are the property just to the north of this property. If you look at the plot map, our southern property line runs probably about 100% of their southern property line. So we've had discussions about how to address that. As I've become more familiar with the development, it's been clearer that it perhaps is less of a concern than we thought. We had no idea how many gazillion gallons of dirt they're bringing in to bring this to grade. So that reduces some of our concern, but we still have a gentleman's agreement that I trust to make sure that at the end we will have our kind of safety and separation concerns dealt with off the record, so it's not a city concern. I guess on the one extent, I'm against the idea of the developer having to give up a lot, just in general, but particularly for the reason of trying to create more public space. I'm all for the idea they've come up with to consolidate their lots to create more public space. That's great, but I'm not a proponent of the idea to try to make this little corner of this relatively small development a public draw. I think that's ill-conceived, that you'd think we're going to draw people from over Sherwood to come to a little itty-bitty park in a big, huge universe full of other really great parks, one which is right across the street. But this serves the neighborhood very well, any local neighbors very well. I just wanted to say that because we as neighbors also don't need the general public from Sherwood coming in, because our property is otherwise unprotected from a walking path and a gazebo and all this activity. So it wasn't really conducive to our existence, if you will, and our neighbors immediately to have tons of people coming in. So it seems for that very reason, as well as serving the neighborhood, who's paying the HOAs and everything else to preserve a small park for their local use versus something that is meant to originally, I think, draw, but I think that ship has sailed. There's no real opportunity here to make that happen, even if that was a dream once. It's not conducive to this particular property. So I think that the work they've done to minimize lot sizes or stretch lot sizes to make more public space available presents an ample opportunity to serve the need of the immediate public service. I don't think this is meant to be the public service for North and West Sherwood Heights. They have lots of opportunities, and so I just wanted to go on record to say, yeah, it's for all of us north of the development. It's great to have another development that doesn't draw tons of people, and it doesn't seem conducive to that purpose. But I guess that's all I had to say. Did I miss anything, honey? I think that's pretty much our position. So I'm in favor of them being able to keep the locks. I just know how development is, and I think they've been a great neighbor to the south of us for many, many years. And as much as we will miss the open space, I think as good as it gets, given they're within the law and their rights. So
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Do we have any other testimony?
Online.
Anything online? All right. Does the applicant want to respond to some of the testimony?
So, Jennifer Arnold with Mirio again. We understand the desire to have park board input on public open space. Because this was going to be maintained by the HOA, it wasn't brought up in early discussions as a requirement. But it is a public process, so we welcome anybody to participate in that. As far as the buffer and screening to the property to the north, I think that's being handled. We are looking at, in addition to that 10,800-ish square feet of park at the top, the lot that has the trail with the gazebo is about 15,000 square feet. A little bit more information as far as size of that open space. And then Tract C, as previously shown, does connect down to the parcels to the south. So it is a big continuous open space. So it's only 2-ish acres on our site, but it does connect down. So it is a much larger open space. There wasn't a lot to rebut, so we're mostly here for questions.
Great. Does council have questions for the applicant? I think, Taylor?
Yeah, I have 3 of them. Okay, all 3? Okay. So,
Your mic needs to be on.
oh, sorry. So, you've said that this was going to be a public park, but maintained by HOAs, and we heard that, well, sometimes those get maintained by the city. And so can I get just a clear answer? Who is mowing the lawns and maintaining the equipment and all of that? Is that
The homeowners association.
okay?
These open spaces will be deeded to the HOA.
Okay, but open to any citizen that wants to walk the trails, et cetera. Okay, so about the trail, does the trail with the wood chip design, does it match the trail in the other Denali? I can't remember what they were called, but the other Denali, where it connects.
No, those other ones were asphalt pavement.
But it does connect up with the end of that asphalt pavement trail.
Okay, it connects up to it, but so you're walking on an asphalt trail and then you'll go onto a wood chip trail for that part of it. Okay.
I mean, if you see, there'll be a distinct change because you're going to go from one open space, which is going to have bark dust and some trees and shrubs, And then once the trees mature, you're going to go to an open space that is a, you know, a grove of trees. So that kind of experience will change for the public, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm all for having, I guess, different kinds of parks, you know, or open spaces, right? And in fact, when I was on the planning commission, I think for the other Denali ones, we talked about this being more of a meditation slash, you know, you're walking through it. This is not one where you'd go play soccer at or something like that. This is meant to be a different kind of experience. I guess I would be a little worried about the mismatch in trails, but not overly so. And I kind of am on the, well, I guess those are the answers to my questions. I guess we'll have a discussion about the rest of it later. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. So the planning commission has not seen this most recent drawing that you were talking about tonight?
Correct.
So we don't know what their opinion of that solution? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else for us?
No, that was it.
I just to say that
we'll have a second option.
I was just going to say, we tried to meet in the middle with, you know, what the neighbor wanted and what the planning commission wanted. So we were trying to, you know, with this new exhibit, we tried to meet somewhere in the middle, you know, without having to give up a lot. And then not that you guys care, but, you know, 31 lots to 32 lots, that could make or break this project for us. And if it does, then we're just going to sit on it. And we don't want to, and I'm sure you guys don't want to. I mean, this is going to be a beautiful site, a beautiful subdivision, beautiful homes for Sherwood. And, you know, financially, if it doesn't work for us, and we'll just sit on it for however long.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we'll move on to counselors to ask questions of staff.
Well, I don't have to go first. So.
Can you go back a couple, the slide about the findings that are the concerns that the planning commission had? Where they were going to take and use that plot?
One, four.
Yeah, I think it's this one. So it doesn't, the open space required chapters. So it doesn't have a specific size for it. Approximately 4 by 5. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I want to be the bad guy, or the defender of the community. So I'd like to ask staff to come back next week with a couple other scenarios. The first, come back with scenarios just says that the application does not meet the standards and findings for denial. Because clearly they're asking for, you know, number of units that needs to meet the Southeast Master Plan, and the plan doesn't do that. The Southeast Master Plan identifies over 4 acres, 4.5 acres, and this plan is barely 2, or a little more, just a hair over 2. So that, I mean, I'd rather have a project than not a project, to be clear, but then ideas of ways to get to a yes, I think is important. And potentially be creative to minimize any risk of lots. I do believe that if you're having a path that goes across part of the project and then behind lots on the north side and the east side, that it should be ADA compliant. We have asphalt parks in treed areas all over town. And I would want it to be open to people of all abilities. The connection, the midpoint from the road down to the trail, I think is important, as they've suggested, and how that looks. As long as it's ADA compliant, I'm supportive. with the huge discrepancy in open space, park amenities, community amenities, trying to meet in the middle, my suggestion is, all right, 2 acres of open space, 1 acre of a park. I'm not particular where it is, and I support creative solutions to minimize the risk of lots. But on that, there be areas that are generally flat, i.e. maybe if it's in a sloped area, you have 2 or 3 areas that are generally flat, and you have transitions between them, so that you have places for kids to play, place for a play structure, maybe a place for a sports court of one variety or another with input from the Parks Board. I think that's important in this project. Because they could just as, I think we need to get the number of units they're requesting, they need to follow the spirit of the Southeast Master Plan. Or go to fewer units, larger lots, and have less of a, and be closer to the amenity of open space that they're suggesting. With the trails, is there, in the flexibility and creativity working with the applicant, trails can be easements across the back of lots, so the lots can still to help preserve the number of lots, maximize the number of lots. Can the road frontage be an easement in a lot size? But then within, I don't know the answer to that. Can the paths from the cul-de-sac to the street be an easement on a lot, for instance? Just as ideas of trying to help maintain the number of lots, but achieve a better result for the community and for the project. If you have an acre lot like that, with play structure, with a hard court, sports court of some variety, there is a pretty valid argument to have a restroom. But on that point, if council thinks that a restroom is important, I'm supportive of the city reimbursing the developer to put the restroom in, so that there is that amenity for the young and old to be able to have a restroom when they're going to enjoy that park. Another carrot, from my perspective, with a park with those kind of amenities, I'm willing to support personally the idea of even a slightly smaller park, maybe reduce the size by 6,000 square feet if they add, because the park should be accessible from a street. And if you add additional parking spaces, perpendicular parking in potentially, to help with that. Just so that instead of 3 cars parking in front of the park, you could have 6. And that those parking spaces could count towards the square footage of the park and reduce the size of the overall park by maybe 6,000 square feet. So those are ideas that I think help get a much better result, much better product, and then some creativity of trying to help maximize the number of lots in the project. That is what I would like to see back and as a second alternative for the council to consider in 2 weeks.
So I have a question about this. So does a plan somewhere say that parks have to have some of these things, like a sports court? Like, for instance, because of the steepness of the land there, if you're going to add a sports court, you got to put a, ball retrieval or so, like, and part of me is saying, I wish we had parks that were more flexible in terms of being different kinds of parks. They don't all have to look like mini Sunset or Snyder parks, right? And we could say, hey, this one's got a meditation garden and it is about nature and the view versus you know, playgrounds and kids running around. You know what I mean? Like this is a different one.
Yep. Well, I believe that the areas, the lots, for instance, that are on the top or the northeast corner, those are probably the premium lots. You shouldn't, and if you're doing active recreation in an acre lot, don't put them up there, put them somewhere else where it's already generally flat.
Okay.
Potentially.
Okay.
So I'm not identifying where this, community asset should be, but I think we need to have this additional community asset. I'm not saying we should have 4.5 acres, which is what the master plan says. And they could do 4.5 acres here in that same spot. They could replant the trees where the trees were removed and develop this. But I'm not saying that.
Okay.
That is a real option of having a 4.5 acre open space, replant trees, and have it. I'm not suggesting that, but it is an option.
Okay.
But when we're having people saying, and we publicly saying, we want more park amenities for our community, we need to.
Oh yeah, in fact, what I love what you said about the path. I feel much more comfortable saying, hey, people in Sherwood love our trails, and we just want them to all match and be ADA compliant so that everybody can do it. I don't know. I guess I'll have to see the options that come back, but I don't know that. Well, I guess I don't want to speak until I see the options. I guess, but I guess I'm saying I'm supportive of it being a different kind of park than our other parks, but I like the paths.
Sure, and I'm not removing the path.
No, I know.
I'm making the path actually functional for for young and old alike, and year round, and then saying let's not sell our community short.
Kim, Councilor Young?
Yeah, I had a concern over the paths as well as far as the wood chips and being ADA compliant. We just recently had citizens of our community concerned that we don't have enough ADA compliant even playgrounds, and one of the concerns was wood chips, getting children, I'm not going to say who or anything, getting children in wheelchairs to the swing set. So a wood chip, I can't imagine that's going to limit some of our citizens from being able to use it. So that's one concern that I had. And then remind me, a PUD has to have some sort of public benefit, right? And so are we saying what are we saying the public benefit for this project is? Did I miss that somewhere? I mean, is it the fact that the public can use the trails and
Yeah, I think that would be the main public benefit, is that the open spaces are going to be owned and maintained by the HOA, but open to the public.
So can we go back to the map, the plot map? So the public benefit, while the trails are there, is way back here, farthest from the street. So I don't know that much the public would, I don't know. Well, I guess they would use the trails to get back there, which
Yeah.
the trails would be nice.
See how many runners we have
Yeah.
going down Sunset?
Yeah.
Yeah, the trail's great.
Yeah.
Make the trail ADA. Then what? What else? I think there's a what else that's needed. Because the code is clear. If you want the level of density they're proposing, they need to adhere to the Southeast Master Plan. And this, in my opinion, does not adhere to it. So we need better. So let's work for better.
So by this, we're not adhering to some of the code because of the Southeast Master Plan
Right.
requirements.
Absolutely. And it's not very vague to me. We're not making decisions or nothing. It's just discussion, conversation. But I think ask staff to work so we can do better.
So let's make sure everyone has a chance Dan, did you have any comments?
Yeah,
or questions?
No questions right now, but the same comments about the trail matching up with the other trail that it's going to join, and then the open space not even being half of what the requirement is for this development. I see concern in that as well.
Stormwater?
That's the stormwater. Yeah. Renee, did you have anything else? No. For now? I generally agree with the concept that, in the spirit of the concept plan, I am concerned about having amenities, especially for our children, on that side of the road, away, so they're not crossing over to the park. That's a concern. In the I had a question. The trail behind the homes on that, I guess would be the northeast corner there. How high are those retaining walls? How far down is that trail going to be?
Probably couldn't tell you off the top of my head. So the site right now, they're going to bring in fill to the site. If we go back to the existing conditions, they're going to have to provide a lot of fill at that northeast corner for a few different reasons. Utilities to be able to flow down towards Murdoch Road, sewer to be able to flow down, and also to create those buildable lots. So we can provide actually I can look, if we get more questions, I can actually pull up the grading plan and give you an idea. But there will be, the trail, if we go back to the plan, the trail will be in a sloped area. So basically what the proposal is, at least in the Planning Commission recommendation, you can see on the very right there, so those would be retaining walls on the very right hand side of the screen, those two little lines almost at the property line, those would be retaining walls. And then it's going to slope up until you get to the building pads roughly. And so, all of those walls are intended to create the flat area for the building pads. And so you're going to see a slope from, roughly the back of the lots all the way down to those retaining walls on the right-hand side. So slopes, and I think it's important to consider what they've given you in terms of revisions. That will clarify, I think. You can kind of see where the trail is. So the bottom one is going to reference lot 22, I believe. That bottom one, if that's correct, it'll say lot 22. And so if you look at the screen here, lot 22 is right next to that little red square. And so, that's that lot, and they're showing you what it's going to look like behind there. And then the other one is going to be, the top one is going to be lot 21, and you can see the slopes right behind lot 21.
Yeah, because, just a sec. The reason I asked that question, because we have one other spot in town where a trail and amenity was put down a 15-foot retaining wall up against a green space, and it's just become a collection point for garbage and wind-blown debris, because it's out of sight. You can't see it. So that's where that question's coming from. And then follow on, I'm looking at what the slopes that the applicant provided here. Another thing I would like to see is in lot 22, it shows the path right at the top of a 10-foot retaining wall. So we'd also want to see railing there to make sure that we don't have, especially our little ones, walking off the edge of that thing. That would be my other comment.
It's at the top of a 10-foot retaining wall and then a 60-foot. I mean, if you go all the way to the bottom here, that's 60 feet, right?
Oh yeah, so with the slopes and everything, it's a pretty bad fall.
But that's why, and by the way, so when I see it, obviously I want to see railing there, but part of it is, that's why I feel like this space, because of the topology, has to be a different kind of park, because
I don't think there's any argument with that. I think what some of us are saying is we need something else, just other than that.
Okay.
Because there's not, I mean, when you have topology like that, there's not a lot you can do but put a trail in, right?
Right. If you're going to do the fill thing, if you're going to do, I mean, again, they make the applicant is making choices that are creating opportunities and creating problems. There's other ways of developing it if they wanted to.
And I guess my last comment for myself is, unless one of you caused me to make another comment, is, just back to public benefit. It's, if it feels like the public benefit here is getting more housing and we need more housing, but this is the type of housing we don't need in terms of some of the shortages that we're facing out in the wider region. So I'm having a hard time seeing the public benefit of this plan versus if you did the original underlining zone, which is as one I think 1 per acre, which is you'd have lots of open space and green areas, and this is taking a lot of it away. So I go back to the original concept plan that was looking for up to 4 acres, not asking for 4 acres, but it would be nice to see some kind of amenity park for our kids to use on that side of the road down there. That's what I'd like to see.
Okay, so I'm not totally sure I remember this right, but compared to the development right next to it, not the one that the gentleman who testified tonight is in, but the one right next to it, it looks like the lot sizes are in the ballpark of, and so I don't know that it's
consistent for sure, but I'm
Yeah.
just having a hard time seeing the public benefit because we had a master plan
Right,
that
okay.
showed a big park down there, an open space. It was wild, it was preserving those historic trees. I think we had,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
So can you pull up that? I think there was a slide that showed the overall. Yeah. Any other questions?
Eric, you understand my request?
I do. I'll provide some comment now, and then I think I'm wondering if we need a motion, or I guess through the mayor, if we need a motion on any direction. If you guys are all in agreement, it seems like there is, but I just want to be clear on that. But my few comments are, from what I'm hearing, and my understanding of the code, I think there's really 2 different areas of concern. The first is under the general PUD criteria, which I think, that's where your amenities are really going to come in, park, or playground, other actual improvements, I think, really fall under the planned unit development criteria, specifically subsection 3 that talks about the unique design and amenities incorporated into the development plan. So I think that's where, the plan is deficient in terms of improvements. And then in terms of amount of open space, would be under the residential land use district specific to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and, the development proposing or complying with the open space plan that's shown in the master plan. So I think there's kind of 2 different areas that council is picking up on that are deficient. So when we come back to you, we'll have, findings that, address these specific criteria. So I think it's really under both. And then just a few comments. I don't want to preclude anything right now, but just from what I've been hearing on the recommendations, and I guess a clarifying question, the request is to make this trail behind the homes ADA accessible, if I heard that right? Okay.
And to be clear, the wood chips aren't going to do it. We need something that like a wheelchair can traverse.
Okay. I'll just say it would require a lot of engineering. I'll just say that. You're probably looking at retaining walls on top of retaining walls, to be able to get the slope. ADA slopes are the slopes have to be very minimal. And so to try and create the building pads, plus create flat area, back here, it's going to require a lot of engineering. So I just want to point that out.
Is there an option to have it be paved but not ADA compliant?
That would be much easier. Yeah. So if you look at the handout that was provided, you can see how many different cutbacks you're seeing in there. That's to get the slopes at a point where it can meet ADA compliance. So it's going to be pretty difficult. You either need a lot more space to be able to have the room to do that, or you're going to need a lot of engineering.
So are you able, away from here, can you look at the proposed trail that wraps around, that goes from a street or the cul-de-sac all the way around to the neighboring project that has asphalt path, is that path, can that be put at a plane that does that part, all that whole length ADA?
I don't know, likely
So-
not all of it, but we can look into that. I think I hear the point that all of the other trails in this area are asphalt and similar design, especially on the property to the south along that area.
Right, because if the adjoining, look at the plans on the adjoining, if the adjoining asphalt path is not ADA compliant, but it's just asphalt path, then at a minimum, let's do asphalt path and
Okay. I think that'd be
evaluate, yeah,
much more doable. And
my perspective of one vote.
Well, that would still make it more accessible to more people.
Absolutely. And I think my recommendation, because I do hear the concern on overall accessibility and having portions of the population that just aren't going to be able to use this. I think the way that we could potentially make up for it is in just more of a park space like you guys are mentioning. That would be the low-hanging fruit as opposed to trying to make the trail ADA. So get something, somewhere in these areas, get additional open space that's, close to the road, very accessible on a flat area that, can really be used and enjoyed by all the population. I just see it as a really difficult design to be able to get that trail to be ADA. So I just want to be upfront about that.
And I know we have this 120-day clock, and from my perspective, if there is more time that's needed to help get there, to, be open to the idea of working with the applicant to extend the clock and give it that extra time if needed.
Yep. So if the applicant agrees to a 120-day extension, we can do that. If they don't agree to it, we couldn't. I think, if push comes to shove, then you guys would just make the decision and, they can decide how to move forward or not. That's my only other comment in terms of input from the Parks Board. Definitely hear that as well. I think what we can do is when we get a pre-application in, so before they even apply, the challenge is they apply and then the clock's ticking. So I think the best approach is to, as soon as we get a pre-application, route it probably to Kristen, Community Services, make sure it gets to the Park Board for some input, whether or not the application actually comes in. So I think that'd be the way to address that.
Is everyone okay with that plan moving forward?
Did we land on whether we're going to look at the paths that could be paved but not ADA compliant?
Yeah.
We're going to look at what was from the other development and see how they align.
Perfect. Okay.
I have one other comment. It would be interesting to see what the Planning Commission thinks about their alternative there too. I don't know if there's room for that as well, or if we going one pathway.
We'd have to remand it back.
Okay, never mind.
If we have time.
Process.
Yeah. All right. So do we need a motion or anything, or just?
I don't make a decision.
I didn't think we could, so, okay. All right. Great. So I think that ends our public hearing. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Eric, for the presentation, and thank you, Eric, the applicant, and everybody else who came and testified tonight. So, where is my agenda? Are we to city manager report? Yep. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd
Keith.
like to start with turning it over to Chief Handler.
You may or may not know, but we have a retirement tomorrow. Sergeant Randy Johnson, after 22 years, is retiring. And so if you are available, we're doing a small celebration at the PD at 3:30 to acknowledge that. Technically his last day is going to be Thursday, but we're going to do some small ceremony for him tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure you guys were invited if you can make it.
Thank you, Ty. Or Chief.
Speaking of the police department, I just want to let the public know that in partnership with the Sherwood School District, the Sherwood Police Department will be conducting trainings on February 8th, which is tomorrow, and also on February 22nd at the high school. The training areas will be blocked off, but the remainder of the school will remain accessible to the students and the staff. We just want to make the public aware when they see police activity, it's part of the training and working with the school district. And then just two other quick things. Warm welcome and congratulations to Ryan Adams, our new city attorney, on his first council meeting. So welcome, Ryan. And then also, I'm happy to report that at 2 p.m. this afternoon in Portland, Lydia took the oath and officially became a U.S. citizen. So,
Hey! All right. Down to the British.
I feel like I might be paying for that comment later on, but it was worth it, and congratulations. I know I've enjoyed taking the citizenship test and to see how I scored, which seemed to be a challenge as she was preparing for this. So a warm congratulations to her as well. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our city manager? I guess not. Thank you, Keith. And I also want to extend a warm welcome to Ryan Adams, our new city attorney. It was a long process getting here. Of course, that's par for the course with government when you're hiring, but we are very excited to have you here. So thank you very much. All right. Let's see. Taylor, you always go first.
Want me to go first again?
No,
Okay.
we're going to pick someone else. Dan, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, the Planning Commission met and discussed development code updates as part of their code cleanup project. One of the things that was mentioned with that was the psilocybin language for the city. And then tax services provided for public for free. If you're making under $60,000 for a household or individual, AARP has teamed up with Cash Oregon to provide free tax filing for any Oregon resident. And the city of Sherwood holds theirs at the senior center by appointment, but there are several locations within the Portland Metro for that. So.
Oh, I can share a little bit. So the Regional Water Consortium, Providers Consortium met last Wednesday, and we approved the consortium budget and the work plan. And then we went into, Craig's back there laughing. We acknowledged the SWOT analysis and then talked about the strategic plan engagement for the rest of the session. So it was interesting being back at it. They've done a lot of work since the last time I was on it, and I look forward to learning more. Not library. Senior Advisory Board meets tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you. Kim.
I was just going to give an update. I am the liaison to the Sherwood School District now, and tomorrow night they have a board meeting, and on their agenda for tomorrow night is a proposal for the 5-year levy, and they are proposing $1.50 per thousand. So the board will be taking that up for a vote. Also on their agenda is just an update on the YSAT, the Youth Substance Abuse Team, and just so people might not know what that is, that's an IGA program that's with the Sherwood School District, the Sherwood Police Department, Washington County Juvenile Department, and City of Sherwood. Recently, the governing board met on that just to look over the current IGA and see what might need to be changed to make it a better working document. After so many years in existence, you kind of need to look back and say what's working, what's not working. So that's a good partnership there. Police Advisory Board is next Thursday, and Taylor's going to go to that for me. And that's all I got.
All right, Taylor.
Okay, so first I was going to talk about the League of Oregon Cities state visit, but I'll let you do that one.
Oh, go for it. You can
Okay, I was going to say we went down to Salem, had a great visit with our state representatives, met several other people from other cities, but reiterated our need for different funds and had our hand out like good politicians, just trying to get money to come towards Sherwood's projects. So, and in fact, raising just awareness on some of the things that we're initiatives on. In fact, we were able to sit in on one of the hearings for the broadband council that I'm sure Tim will talk more about. But it was great to see it in action and to be a part of it. It wasn't mentioned, but I participated in a meeting held jointly between the school and the city about like how to get businesses involved. And Bruce, who's I think not here anymore, but Bruce was a big director in it and trying to get leaders from businesses in Sherwood to partner with the school district about getting more on-target training programs and just relationships with the different local school or businesses between the business and schools. And frankly, it was a very energizing and very exciting, well-attended event. And so congratulations to Bruce for setting it up and the school district for hosting it. And frankly, I hope it's the start of many more like that because you could just feel the excitement in the room. The library board I went with, they're working on onboarding a couple of new members and also working on some short range plans and long range plans, and we're just trying to begin working on those. In fact, one of the things that Dan mentioned about the law or the tax services, they do have tax forms here and helps here in the library as well. And then the Parks Department, we had a short meeting, covered a couple of tree removals, and we're working on the priorities. I filled in for Doug on that, and we filled in, we heard the testimony about the flooding at Stella Olson and what they've been doing to work on that and fix it. And then they were looking at their different priorities, and the only one that came up that was they weren't ranking them yet, but they did say that there's more and more interest in pickleball courts, and they're getting a lot of comments about that. So with that being said, that's my report.
Keith, you're up.
Awesome. I had intended to go to my first cultural arts board meeting, but scheduling as it was, Kim was good enough to cover for me as I got to attend my first water intake facility board meeting. Riveting. Craig can attest they are truly exciting, but reviewed the work plan. It might be another interesting year with water. We just don't truly know yet, but we'll see. Between the WIF and the plant and the WRWC. Oh, is that right? Yeah. The quarterly League of Oregon City board meeting was held was last week as well. Sounds like last week, the week before. Time all blends together. It was in Detroit, so that was nice to celebrate the gradual return of Detroit after the fires, and all of the McMansions that they're actually building in place of places that were not before. It's interesting. So that's enough.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. I have a couple things. As Taylor mentioned, we went down to City Day, which is sponsored by the League of Oregon Cities. I always refer to it as speed dating because you're running from office to office, meeting with different legislators down there. And it's a chance for us to advocate some specific things we're looking for from the state in terms of funding is money to clean up the tannery site over off Oregon Street, about $2.1 million. And we're also looking for about $600,000 in some planning money to, as a lot of people are beginning to understand, it's not just about 99 West and Sunset for pedestrian crossing. We're also looking at Cedar Creek and potentially lifting 99, restoring that stream corridor, and providing a crossing there so our kids can get to the schools and we can connect our communities. That's a bigger lift, excuse the pun, and will take a lot more money, but we need to get the planning going on that, so we're asking the state for about $600,000 to help us out with planning on that. But it was a good day down there. We got to spend some time with Aaron Woods and Courtney Neron, our senator and House rep down there. They're great. We had a great meeting with them, and I think both of them will be real advocates. And I can't say how lucky we are to have the representatives that we do. They're very involved and engaged with Sherwood and understanding our needs, and that is rare. It is very rare that our representatives are this involved. I mean, Courtney's been known to come down to engineering meetings for our pedestrian bridge internal meetings, so she can truly understand what we're doing and how to advocate for us, so, which is awesome. I also had the great surprise, Representative Salinas, who is our new federal House representative, reached out and wanted to meet with me, which that was a surprise. It normally doesn't happen either. So we sat down for about an hour. I had a great conversation about some of the needs of Sherwood. We have our consulting firm, working with our consulting firm and our federal team. We have some federal asks for additional earmarks. They don't like to call them earmarks anymore, but I will. Projects for the city, including cleanup money and some sewer. We have 2 different sewer projects that we're hoping to get some federal money for. I'm actually going to be, excuse me, I'll be in DC on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Our city manager is joining me. We're going to meet with our federal team out there and advocate for the projects that we want to do. So that's been a fun process. I've also met this last month, just closing out my first month as mayor, and so a lot of it's just been getting to know a lot of my peers out in the region. Had my first Metro Mayors meeting. That was an interesting meeting, and that's mayors from all over the metro region. The Washington County, we have a Washington County Mayors meeting tomorrow, I think, no, Friday. And so just getting. I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. Just kidding. Your colleagues are great.
No, they're great. And city, I mean, I've covered for you in some of those meetings before.
Yeah, I know.
So
I was giving you a bad time.
it's not entirely new,
They're great folks.
But they're great folks. And one nice thing, just a shout out to some of our neighbors on the west side of the county, like Hillsborough and Forest Road and Cornelius. There is a sense of partnership. We were having a meeting with TriMet, and we were talking about transportation to 99 West, and all of them were advocating for 99 West, that we need to put more dollars and more attention into 99 West and how traffic flows out of Yamhill County, and how do we get it to all the people that live in Yamhill County, how do we get them to the work center? So I know. Anyways, so that was great to see. So anyways, so I've just been getting kind of aligned with all those groups and working with those groups. So it's been an interesting month. So that's all I got. So I think with that, we will adjourn this meeting. And we're just going to stay here for the URA, and then we'll call our URA. Are you guys ready to call the URA in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do we need a break? Nope. Okay. So our next meeting, we're going to call our URA board meeting to order at 9:05. So first order of business is roll call.
Chair Rosner?
Here.
Vice Chair Mays?
Here.
Member Browse?
Here.
Member Young?
Here.
Member Giles?
Here.
Member Stankey?
Here.
And Member Scott is absent.
Thank you, Sylvia. On the consent agenda tonight, we have one item, approval of the October 4th, 2022 URA board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move consent. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, council. And now on to new business. We have a URA resolution 2023-001, and I think Jason is going to talk to us tonight. How you doing, Jason?
Let him tell.
Oh, make sure that's green.
There we go. Mayor Rosener, congratulations.
Thank you.
Councilors, thanks for having me. This is follow-up to your December 6th work session. There was a request on your last slide at that presentation to follow up and do a endorsement of the Ice Age Drive alignment. And I know we have a new mayor and we have another councilor here, so that's what we're doing here. The work session was 33 minutes long. I watched it today, and it was very informative. Just to remind you, we had Resolution 2021-66 that renamed the East-West Connector to Ice Age Drive, Ordinance 2018-003, adopted in the TSP or identified it on the TSP map as Project D20. So this resolution endorses the alignment. We'll be back on the 21st for a right-of-way resolution with the city council. And then we'll be awarding the final design contract to Kittleson at the ORA board meeting. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Other than that, I don't have any other items to present. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions?
I appreciate you coming and presenting it so folks can see what we're all looking at and the community as well.
Are we settled on Ice Age Drive? I thought we talked about that name change.
I would love a different name, but I think that's where everybody else settled. So
The boat sailed? Okay. All right.
you have a different suggestion?
I will come up with one if and you don't even have to pass a resolution. I'll figure, I'll do some market research, but I'm not going to do it if it's, the ship has sailed. It's not that big of a.
We can talk later.
Yeah.
I got some ideas. So we don't need to actually do a resolution tonight, or do we need to do this resolution?
Yeah.
We do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve URA Resolution 2023-001, endorsing the alignment of Southwest Ice Age Drive between Southwest Oregon Street and Southwest 124th Avenue as the local preferred alternative for final design and construction.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. And
There's a debate on the exec session. So what's the deal on the exec session?
Thank you.
We should have amended the agenda to remove it.
Yeah, the exec session was noticed in the wrong area under the URA, and so we're unable to do it, so we'll work with the mayor and schedule another time.
So we cited the wrong language?
We cited it in the URA instead of on the council agenda.
Very good.
Yep.
All right.
So it wasn't noticed properly, so. All right, so I'll call this URA board meeting is adjourned. Thank you.